Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I would like my viewers on here to pray that I go out and find a cheat code to jump over some of life's most challenging situations. So, I was 7 years old when I discovered that my favorite video game came with a cheat code and I could jump to other levels of the game. Now, when I jumped to other levels of the game, I was able to practice various things in the game, and eventually I was able to beat the game with ease. And nowadays, just beating the game isn't all that challenging for me. I eventually came up with various other challenges, like trying to beat the game without doing various things or trying to speedrun the game, right? Um, I run into difficulty with all the ancillary situations in my life. So, for example, I am working at a job that I know very well and I love, but I run into ancillary problems. For example, how do I make my schedule work with the job, right? Oftentimes I can't sleep on command, I can't eat on command, and getting that to mesh well with what I'm doing at work often is challenging to me. And then I go to the office and I have food allergies, and every once in a while I run into a barrier. They're actually too often. And actually, I was thinking last week I had to tell one of my students, I work at a tutoring center. I apologize for backing away from you, but I'm seriously allergic to what you. I said it a little bit better than that, but when you're done with your food, would you mind washing your hands? I'll come right back to you. And and then my heart raced down to my chest because I realized that the last few times that I have done that, it has never turned out well. Actually, when I went home, I did a mental scorekeeping, and I realized that every time I have asked for an allergy related situation like that, it has been the beginning of the end of that job. It never turns well. I do a lot of customer facing kind of jobs, so that could be it. Oh, come on! Give me a second. And I work a lot of customer facing jobs, and a lot of students and or their parents will complain. Students will go home and say that somebody laughed at their food when that wasn't really the case, right? They'll say it in their own words, right? These are 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids, right? Who may not have been exposed. See, we need to teach about food allergies and other common chronic health conditions in health class. We really do. Not just to the people who are directly in contact with it or involved with it, but because when these kids go out in their daily lives, not just at tutoring, but when they go to, when I was in seventh grade, I competed in math counts, right? When these kids go to on their first dates, they're gonna run into it, right? And okay, it's just like you would teach about other safety issues, right? Like, for example, 5 years ago, we were teaching kids left, right, and center about how infectious diseases spread, right? Or you teach kids about why they need to maintain various kinds of hygiene, right? I liken it to that, right? Or why various safety matters, right? When they're out about walking, right? Or right, you get the idea, right? I treat it as akin to that. But a lot of kids go home, they complain to their parents, oh, my tutor laughed at my food. Or maybe you get, I had a boss at a tutoring center who was an immigrant. And it was apparent he had never been exposed to the concept of food allergies. And when I looked up his home country, their food allergy rate was very low, right? Only a few people per million or something like that. And also, people need to acknowledge that there's always new things to learn, even at his age, right? That's the other thing. But the point is that every time I have made one of these comments, it has been the beginning of the end of my job. Usually, I don't get fired right away, but people think I'm a nuisance to deal with. They see this situation as a liability. And so last week when I ran into it, I got nervous and I went home and I started job hunting. It was I know it's very reactionary. And I also made a lot of art. I got an art show next week. And then it dawned on me, my back is killing me every time I go to that art show. Too heavy. But I need the security of having a second income. And yesterday I had to face the student again, and to her credit, she even I was hoping to let that thing just completely blow over and not even pretend it never happened, but she actually apologized to me again, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing because that's not an experience I've ever had at work, especially with other situations. Maybe somebody that I'm dating might be accommodating of that, right? Or maybe uh, somebody outside of work. But when work is involved, when there's fierce competition at work, when careers are on the line, I've never gotten good accommodations like that. I've outright lost clients over stuff like that. I was working with. You see, I gotta be careful. I really despise meeting tutoring clients at their home because the environment is never ideal. People use air fresheners. Some people smoke in their home, both the cigarettes and the marijuana. Um, uh, all sorts of hazards in people's homes. I tend not to run into that if we meet in public. Most public spaces today are much more mindful of not using stuff like that, right? The fragrances, well, not really. Here, I still have to be careful out in public, but not nearly as badly as people's homes. And so I usually try to sway my tutoring clients away from their home as much as I can because it. I go into their home and I realize it won't work, and I tell these people about it. They take it really personally, and so I I've lost the clients, and like I said, every time I have brought up a food or an environmental allergy, it's a downward sloping. I mean, it might not directly drop to hell, but it's downward sloping from there every time. And I think there's a whole lack of awareness situation. Like I said, this is something we should teach in health class. Even if there's nobody in the building that has a food allergy, it's out there. It's kind of like learning about safety, right? Here in Arizona, we would, what are some safety hazards that one can run? Heat waves, obviously. I'm sure they teach that in health class, right? Uh, all right. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.